Hi everyone, it's Darius. I did a video, God, has it really been 2 months? 2 months ago on tools and where to find them, where to get them, and how much you should spend or how much you shouldn't spend. And I went back and watched that video and realized I didn't give anywhere near enough information on, well, what tools do you need? And I kind of summed it up with a cheeky, what do you think you need? Which I fully admit, in part, I still do hold the opinion that you should be thinking about what you need for your practice. Because no one can define it for you. Not really. You can practice a particular book or a set tradition, or that's all well and good. But what you think you need is going to be based on what you do in your craft. If you're not practicing a form of Wicca that uses symbols, or that consecrates properly, or that summons things, or that does particular kinds of spell work, you probably won't need something fancy like this. You might not need a pattern at all if you don't use it. Otherwise, it's kind of a pretty... I mean, some people have patterns as something to sit on their altar so they can feel witchy. A pattern is the physical object. The pinnacle is the symbol when it's engraved on an object. Or at least that's how I was taught. But a pattern, there we are. The symbol of the star. Why do you need this? Do you need this? Well, what would you use it for? I'm part of a particular tradition of Wicca, and I've blessed this and empowered it and worked on it over and over and over again and placed objects upon it to empower them. It's part of I have this pattern. I have another smaller pattern upstairs. That's on my altar currently. That's the one I tend to use more just because this one, as beautiful as it is and as big as it is, as you can tell, it's really old and worn. I've really worked this. I mean, there are people who have far more worked patterns, but I've worked this one a bit. I'll lay tools on it to consecrate them. I will lay spell work on it to give it that extra oomph as I keep continually working spells on it. I contribute some of that residual energy into the pattern itself so that every spell I do is empowered by all of the previous spell work I've done. I do other things with it that I won't discuss here, but I have things in mind. The bowls I show in my tools and where to get them. The little glass bowls. I got like I said in that video, set of 4 from the Dollar Tree. They're little culinary bowls. They're little glass bowls. I work a lot with herbs. I work a lot with loose incense. I do a lot of spirit offering where I will put materials or liquids in the bowl. Sorry, I'm messing with what's on my legs. Well, and then put that in the bowl, and I'll say blessings over it, and I'll leave it somewhere. Or I will make an offering to a deity, and I'll have a bowl, and I'll have that bowl, or a bowl like it, or one of them, or any bowl kind of that size, and I'll put the offering in there, and I'll, dress it, and I'll put it in front of them. Like those, a lot of people don't think about the little things in ritual that you may need. Like, people can think of incense. Well, do you have incense burners? I've had witches forget that. It's really stupid sometimes. Granted, you can get a glass and fill it with sand and stick the incense in like that, all, in the style of a Japanese funeral. You don't want to do that for every ritual, though, because not every ritual is a Japanese funeral or requires that implication. Some people do that for all the rituals, and if they're comfortable with that, that's fine. Do you want moon water? Do you want to put distilled water in and this is how I was taught moon water. How I learned moon water. Do you want to put it, do you want to, wash a bottle out? Like, this is actually a rum bottle. I haven't washed this out yet. I plan to. Not sure if I'm going to use it for magic or just as a pretty bottle. But if you did, you could, you fill it with water, place it under the light of the moon. If you do use a rum bottle like that, I'd recommend scraping off the labels. And say a prayer as you put it there, and let the moon's light empower it. Some people will put crystals around it to like draw in the energy. Some people will put crystals in it. I think a prayer is sufficient. Sometimes I'll light incense next to it to kickstart it and get it going. An incense made from a plant that has a lunar nature. Anyway, as far as materials in your spells, temporary materials, herbs, incenses, resins, people use colognes, perfumes, oils. A lot of people are into essential oils and working oils nowadays. If you're going to use that, that's what you need. I know I'm still being very vague and not being very helpful in, okay, well, how do you actually do a spell? There are enough ways to do spells. There are more ways to do spells than there are witches to do them. So me telling you here in long detail, well, maybe it's probably better to use something you define for yourself for your own practice. Some witches don't need all this paraphernalia. A fair number of witches don't. Some of the best witches I know will get a candle holder or a few candle holders, a box of Shabbos candles, and maybe a thing of olive oil. And they'll pray over the candle as they anoint it, or chant over the candle as they anoint it, and they'll put it there, and they'll sit, and they'll focus, and they'll concentrate on what they want to do. And they will write up the chant beforehand, some will make it up as they go along, and they'll chant, and they'll stare at the candle flame, and they'll concentrate, and they will just follow their feeling as to when that's done right, when it's done. Some will add, like, store-bought incense, which is relatively easy, and, drew symbols in the air, or waft it, or, kind of anoint themselves with it, like putting their hands to the smoke and putting it over their head, or... there's more ways to do spells than there are witches to do them. I once went to a class with a lecture by Laurie Bruno. By the way, those of you who don't know her, she's a Strega who runs a shop in Salem, Massachusetts. Nice lady. Fairly experienced witch. I haven't known her well, and I haven't done a lot of classes. I just did the one. But just from that one class, I was like, okay, she knows what she's talking about. She talked about one spell she did where, and this was technically a curse. I wouldn't recommend it. But it was a person's name written on a piece of paper, tucked in a pile of dog crap. And it was, okay, you're going to feel like shit until you do right by this person. That was it. That was the extent of her curse. Piece of paper and a pile of dog shit. You don't need fancy things. If you want fancy things, if you like fancy things, that's awesome. You don't need to go out and buy a lot of expensive herbs. You could go out and find herbs if you have any amount of nature near you. I live in New York State. I have picked mugwort out of my yard because it's an invasive weed. It really is. It grows everywhere in huge bushels, and it's really irritating. But it's mugwort, and it's a sacred visionary herb, and it's really good for a lot of magical purposes. You can just go out and flipping find it. If you want to know how to identify it, there are hundreds of channels on YouTube. Brushcraft, herbalism, herbal medicine, wild crafting. Hell, Susan Weed has a channel. She's a Wise Woman Traditions. She's practically a category of that kind of video all on her own. She touches on all of these things. And she's really cool, I think. She does a lot of good work, at least as far as herbal medicine is concerned. She does a lot of good videos. If you trust herbal medicine, I'd recommend you take a look at there. Even if you don't, I would still take a look at there because a lot of the times her videos are, let's go into this vacant lot and see what we can find. Oh, look at this plant. You see this shaped leaf? You see how this stem? If you rub this stem, it should have this kind of smell. Look at these flowers. These are the seed pods. And suddenly you know how to identify such and such plant. I learned how to identify mullein. I learned how to identify mugwort. And I've only been watching her videos for a week or two. In between a bunch of other things. I'm learning how to identify sumac. I've learned how to identify wild grapevine, which does not always look like standard grapevine. Yeah, like you don't even have to go to Susan Weed. You can go to almost any wild yarrow, which is really nice. I found some wild yarrow recently. I didn't cut it down. I didn't have anywhere to store it, and didn't really have room for it. But it's really cool. I like that. Sarsaparilla, I learned how to identify. Anyway, I haven't found any locally, but I know how. But if I find it, I know what it looks like and how to identify it and how to harvest it. Useful information. You learn what you need partly by reading, partly by listening to your gut, partly by doing. And by the way, your gut will not always give you a full answer. I really should do a video on intuition overall, but your gut won't always give you a full answer. 9 times out of 10, when I'm doing a spell, I will be sitting and I'm like, okay, something has to happen here. Something needs to happen at this point in the ritual, in the spell, in whatever I'm doing. What is it? It's nagging at me. I don't know what it is. It's irritating. Would something just tell me what I'm supposed to do right now, because I can feel there's a piece of this that I need to do, and I have to sit and wait until it comes. It's irritating. But when I do that, I have really good results because I'm listening to my intuition, to my instinct, to my guides. Sometimes it's your guides and guardians. Sometimes they're the ones who are poking you on the shoulder and going, you're missing something. There's something else that needs to go in there if you want this to work. That's the thing. But if you're going to do that in the wild, with wild plants, and you're like, I should clip that and then find out what it is. Okay. Bring gloves. It could be poisonous. It could be a skin irritant. You don't know. Bring a little hydrocortisone. Wear bug spray. Wear sunscreen. Common sense. Adult. Oof. And sometimes, fun fact, everything you buy you're going to need to maintain if you want it to serve you. So this is another thing to consider in your tools. This I bought ages ago. It was really nice. It was really just, and it still is. I still like it. But it's a bitch to clean. This thing is a bitch to clean if I don't want it to look like crap. So here I have, this is water. Well, it's dirty now, dirty water. Dish soap and a Dollar General toothbrush I bought as a 2-for-pack for $1 just for this purpose. And I scrubbed this fucker clean because I hadn't in a while and it looked really shitty. And that's after I put this, because it had caked on wax. I put my tools through the ringer. It had caked on wax, and I put it on a baking sheet that I put several layers of aluminum on. So aluminum foil on, so that wax wouldn't get onto the baking sheet. Put it on there, turn on the stove, and put it on the top of the stove where it was hot, where it was nice and hot, and where I would immediately smell smoke if anything caught, because it's probably paraffin wax, and that is combustible. Granted, I turned the stove to like 115. It was not super high. It was like, okay, this should be the point where water starts to steam. It's going to be the point where wax starts to slowly melt, and most of the wax melted off. I had to clear off some of it. And I had to scrub out all of the sea salt that got embedded in there from purification rituals. And, oh, sea salt. Really great purifier. Cheap as hell. Buy it at ShopRite. Just so easy. I think every witch should have a little bit of salt somewhere in their collection. That's a catch-all. Some salt. If you don't have respiratory problems. Some incense. Some candles, if you can burn them. Some dressing oil, olive oil, maybe if you want to anoint yourself for a special ritual or something. I use olive oil half the time. I have a box of beautifully scented essential oils. I use olive oil half the time because I don't always want to go through all that fuss. And olive oil is perfectly good. Safflower oil, perfectly good. Sunflower oil, very nice energy, perfectly good. Almond oil, if you're not allergic, perfectly good. Some people are. How do you know if you are? Have some Benadryl and hydrocortisone on hand. Put a drop on your arm. Leave it there for 15 minutes. If that gets red and puffy, you're allergic. Some people are only allergic internally. Keep the children's like Benadryl handy. A drop under your tongue. Leave it there. There. Not essential oils, mind you. This is like cooking oils. Essential oils, you will probably have an allergic reaction or get sick from putting a drop under your tongue because they're so absolutely concentrated. The body is not meant to handle that. Anyway, sorry, I'm rambling. So, yeah. You don't need fancy things. I bought this ages ago because I wanted it. It wasn't because I needed it. I didn't use it for years. I felt so stupid for the longest time for having this. It was so fancy, and I didn't use it for squat for the longest time until I learned how to consecrate in my tradition and really bless things. And that is when I really put this baby to work. Moon water, like I was talking about before, bless and empower your spells. That's cool. Some people put stuff in it. Essential oils, crystals, herbs. I don't really. I don't see the need to make all that special. I'm like, it's special enough. Empowered by the moonlight. Maybe blessed by some incense. God, I have to make more moon water. Anyway. Yeah, I'm running low. Yeah, that's really it. If you want to do a little bonfire indoors, you're going to need something to contain it in. Something small. I would say buy a cooking pot about yay big at the biggest, not Teflon lined. Straight up metal. Have something to go under it that'll insulate it from the heat, like a nice hot plate. Like a nice not a hot plate, but like a heat pad hot plate, like one of those little ceramic ones you put under and it doesn't burn the counter. Don't necessarily use wood or anything like that. This is not alcohol. This is witch hazel. Also a nice thing that you can have for witchy stuff, believe it or not. It's an astringent. It's really good for skin irritations. It has witchy uses. Witches cannot always agree on what to use witch hazel for. Look it up. But rubbing alcohol. The base rubbing alcohol you can buy in your, like, off the shelf in your supermarkets. I use that for ritual fires indoors. I will put like maybe 1/4 of an inch at most because it takes a while to burn. And 1/4 of an inch is a lot of alcohol. And on the bottom, if you can get your hands on one, it feels more ritual-y and it feels really cool. I have a cauldron about, big. It's not very large. I'll probably show it in another video. It's upstairs and I don't feel like going to get it right now. But I could not even fit this whole thing of twine in there. It's that small. It's that compact. I can put a few dollops of alcohol in there, and put it on top of this ceramic paten. It's really nice that this is ceramic, by the way. This is ceramic. I can put it on there. Heat-proof. Lovely. So you can find really cool stuff. You could just find a heat-proof ceramic tile made for normal kitchen pots. You don't need something fancy. You can find a blank one and paint this on it. Nothing. You don't need anything fancy. And if you do need fancy things, you can make fancy things. But that's my ritual fires 9 times out of 10. It's super cheap. I think I bought that little cauldron in a little New Age shop locally for $5. Or was it $8? I think it was $8. Probably $8. If you can't save up $8, stick to Shabbos candles and olive oil. Just saying. I'm not saying you can't be a witch. I'm saying if you are that short on money that you cannot spend $5, $6, $7, $8 for something you're going to use for years, do Shabbos candles and olive oil. Get a candle holder from the dollar store. Start off with one. Focus. Pray. Harvest your herbs wild. Watch some YouTube videos. Learn how to identify. Gather up things. Maybe have a little garden. And by a little garden, I mean like a window box. You can grow almost every magical herb you need in a window box if you really need it. Anyway. So, now that I've given you some tips and pointers, what do you think you need? Mary Part.